Hello to everybody. Welcome to the webinar Ways to Improve Your Emotional Intelligence. My name is Lisa Zordel and I will give you a short explanation about how the webinar is running today. Every participant except Franci will be muted, and if any one of you has something to say, you can just use the function raise your hand so that I can unmute you. Also, you have the opportunity to use the chat function during the whole webinar. And after the presentation, you will have the opportunity to ask Franci questions. And to ask your questions, please use the Q&A window below. And also, this webinar will be recorded and uploaded afterwards on our Women in Business YouTube channel. So now I would like to give the floor to you, Franci, to start with the presentation.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm delighted to be able to spend the next half of an hour with you on the webinar, How to Improve Your Emotional Intelligence. I appreciate your decision to take the time for this workshop, and I promise you that I will do my best to make the most of this time we spend together. Before we begin, I ask you to be open to new information, because only in this way you will be able to make a realistic judgment of what you will see and hear that can be useful for you. Because it is not what we do not know the main obstacle to our progress and growth, but what we think we know. Because of this, we close our mind to all that it brings new opportunities. Now, let me introduce myself briefly. I have been an entrepreneur for 26 years. My business is publishing. But in the last decade, I have been involved also into the entrepreneurial consulting. I'm a certified fast-growing business coach and life coach, and since last year, also a certified emotional intelligence practitioner. In the last period, I have been intensively educated in this field, and now I share my knowledge with participants in workshops and seminars, and also in the forum of individual counseling. The purpose of today's webinar is that you become more aware of your emotions, change your emotions for the better, understand the importance of the emotional intelligence, and learn some ways how to improve your emotional intelligence. No matter what you think currently about emotional intelligence, the fact is that many organizations all around the world, including the World Economic Forum, rank emotional intelligence as one of the most important soft skills needed to succeed in the 21st century. Recently, in modern society, it has come to realization that for a successful work, and especially for cooperation with other people, the reasonable intelligence, that means technical knowledge and ability to solve problems and make decisions, simply is not enough. Whether we admit it or not, our behaviors, like thousands and more years ago, still drive emotions. Being aware of emotions and using them in a positive way is what makes the difference between an individual who is emotionally intelligent and one who is not. So, when we talk about emotional intelligence, of course, we also talk about emotions. But what is emotion? Emotion is a mental state that arises spontaneously rather than as a result of conscious decision, and is often associated with psychological changes and sometimes also with physiological changes. We have developed this skill through our evolution as the ability to perceive the world around us, which differentiates us significantly from animals. At this point, I would like to underline that emotions are not feelings. Feeling is the awareness of what is happening in our body when we experience a particular emotion. Each emotion can be occupied by several different feelings. The important feature of emotions is that they are subjective. What does it mean that they are subjective? This means that what triggers your emotions is different from what triggers someone else's emotions. The reason for this lies in our perception. Okay, but what is perception? Perception is a sensory experiencing of the world from our perspective. It is therefore our subjective view of the world in accordance with the information provided to us by our senses and our beliefs. Let's do a short test. Look carefully at the photo I will show you in the moment so that you can then describe it. Okay? Here you are. Now, after you saw a situation in the photo, I ask you to describe this picture with just one emotion. What emotion would that be? Based on the experience in my workshops, I bet that the descriptions of this situation would be quite different among all of you, because every one of you experienced different emotions when observing, and that is normal. Each person interprets the same situation, the same event, the same message in their own way, depending on his or her senses and beliefs. In my workshops, I often invite a volunteer on stage and then set him opposite to me and show him a closed book, the cover page facing him. Then I ask him, do you agree with me that the cover of this book is unwritten? Of course, he disagrees because the title of the book is displayed on the first page. So for a while we argue for each other, and in the end we find out that each of us was right. It was about defending what we each saw from our perspective. Would you agree with me if I say that similar situations often happen to us in everyday life? We claim that something is so and so, and we cannot understand that someone, on the other hand, does not realize that he is wrong, because everything is so clear and evident. In doing so, we forget that the picture of someone on the other side of the same thing, of the same subject, is different than ours, and that their emotions are the result of their perception and their beliefs. Now we can go back to the emotions that we said to be a mental state, which as a rule arises spontaneously without our conscious decision. What do you think? Can emotions also arise consciously? Yes or no? They can. We have the ability to influence our emotions, and we can consciously decide how we feel, which is mainly related to what we focus on at the same point. The experts divided the emotions into basic and complex or composite. This definition is similar to colors. Mixing primary colors, blue, red, and yellow, yields secondary colors, orange, green, and purple, and mixing primary and secondary colors yields tertiary colors. The same experts have justified different models of basic and complex emotions, but all agree that basic emotions include anger, sadness, joy, and fear. And some of them add to this set of basic emotions also surprise and disgust. We usually do one short exercise at the workshops. I ask participants to write on a piece of paper what emotions they have experienced in the last week. Positive, pleasant emotions are entered in one column, and negative or unwanted emotions are entered in the other column. What column do you think is longer? You guessed. The negative emotion column is much longer for most participants. And what exactly is the connection between emotions and emotional intelligence? A lot of studies have shown that the way we feel affects our way of thinking and the choices we make. For example, if you see that your boss is in a very bad mood, will you go and ask him if he would raise your salary? Probably not. Because if the boss is in a negative emotional state, he will be more likely to say no than when he is satisfied and in a good mood. Emotions also affect how we behave. This is reflected in the tone of our voice, expression on the face, and body language. Because of this, emotions are essentials to how we communicate and participate in a team in the workplace. Last but not least, the way we feel affects our performance. Think about how you act when you are stressed, when you are anxious or very tired. Research shows that you are most successful when you feel valued, understood, and when you have support. The way we feel affects our way of thinking, our behavior, and how productive or not productive we are. It should be remembered that the way you act, that means the behavior you choose to interact with other people, depends on how people around you feel. The way they feel depends on how much they are willing to engage. And how much they are willing to engage depends on all the results of those relationships, whether it is your subordinates, your boss, your partner, your kids, or your friends. Every day we have at our disposal who we want to be in this world. Our choices we make shape the world around us. And why is emotional intelligence so important? Because it is a set of abilities that allow us to perceive and understand how we feel and how others feel, allow us to effectively manage emotions, and help us think to the best of our ability, adjust our decisions, behave to the best of our ability, and do our best in our work and our private lives. People with well-developed emotional intelligence manage different situations effectively, have a positive impact on other people, retain alertness even when they're stressed or pressured, know how to get other people to help them, express themselves clearly, gain the respect of others in all possible circumstances, and recognize their emotional response to other people and situations. They control their behavior and that of others as they negotiate, know how to motivate themselves to do what is needed when it is needed, maintain a positive attitude in an uncertain environment, and choose the right approaches to reach their goals. On the other hand, people with low emotional intelligence get angry without knowing why and what they are feeling, are unaware of how they affect others, do not understand how others feel in different situations, do not control the emotions and the behavior of others, behave egoistically, lose control of themselves when they are under pressure or stress, do not understand the connection between thoughts, emotions, and behavior, focus on other people's weaknesses, have difficulties to establish new relationships, overestimate their abilities, are ineffective in solving problems, have difficulties to adapt to changes, do not have clear directions and goals in life, and seek reasons for their failures in other people and circumstances. Okay, so it is obvious that emotional intelligence has a very important role in our life. But does it mean that it is something new that we didn't know before? Actually not. Descriptions of emotional intelligence are as old as the old estimates of human behavior. The Bible, Greek philosophers, modern psychology. And then in early years of the 20th century, we can notice the ambition to measure intelligence. Intelligence quotient was defined, which divided people into average and above average. At some point, the idea that success requires a high intelligence quotient prevailed. But soon a problem with this definition emerged, because in society, there were extremely intelligent people who were not successful, and on the other hand, average intelligent people who shone on their field. American psychologist Edward Lee Thorndike was the first to lay the foundation for emotional intelligence with the definition: social intelligence is ability to communicate with people, understand and perform in social relations. In 2002, Daniel Goleman and his colleagues defined emotional intelligence based on 4 abilities to recognize emotions and use that awareness in relationships with others. And we can see the model of Daniel Goleman on this picture. On one side, we have personal skills, and on the other side, we have social skills. And then we can divide personal skills in the first part, that is self-awareness, and the second part is self-management. And among social skills, we can divide them in the first category of social awareness and the second category, relationship management. Over the past 2 decades, many experts have been engaged in further developing the model of emotional intelligence. Genos, an Australian company, have focused on developing a model that can be put into practice as easily as possible, and they succeed. The Genos model is unique because it makes it possible to measure observable behaviors in a practical and easy way, and it allows organizations to measure how their employees behave in the workplace and what they need to do to improve their results. This model consists of 6 capabilities, each of which is evaluated on the basis of 7 different criteria. Let's look at the components of this model. The first part of the Genos model of emotional intelligence is self-awareness, and we can see it is the same part as we saw in the model of Daniel Goleman. Every of these 6 parts of these 6 abilities, it is possible to see in a productive or unproductive way. So this self-awareness can be present, that means productive, and it can be shown also in an unproductive way, that means that the person is disconnected. Self-awareness means that we are aware of how we feel and what impact our emotions can have on our choices, behaviors, and abilities. If we are not aware of ourselves, we are not connected to reality, to the reality of a particular moment, which means that we can act in a way that will cause unwanted consequences. There are many ways how to improve our self-awareness. First of all, we should be well aware of ourselves. There is a tool that can be used. It is called SWOT, and it is very similar than SWOT analysis that we use for companies. So if you Google, you will find how this tool can be used, and I do recommend you to do this. The second possibilities, the second way how to improve our self-awareness is that we make a conscious effort to be present, to be mindful. Mindfulness is a very good skill in this world, and you can find also on the internet some techniques how to improve this skill. The third way is that we are aware of our emotions, try to detect them at the early stage when they appear, and determine which, especially negative ones, have the strongest influence on us. We can also train our senses. We can do this almost every day in a very simple way. So when we are walking into the street, that is in these days a problem because of coronavirus, but in general, when we are at some place, we can consciously be aware, and we try to notice what our senses are bringing to us. And we can also try not to react in some situations, but instead of this, that we respond. So what is the difference? If we react, we do the same that animals do. So when they are in a situation, they in the moment take a decision to fight or to run away. But we are much more intelligent beings, so we can, in every situation, we can stop and we can think and then do something. So we do not react, but we respond. And if we respond, we will find out that we will have much less conflicts in a private life and also in our workplaces. And we can consciously change our emotional state, but by changing our body posture, words, and focus. Unfortunately, we do not have enough time to go deep in this topic, but you can also find some video files in the internet, how the language we use and how our posture and how our mind focus have direct consequences on our emotions. Okay, let's go on and look at the second part of this model of emotional intelligence, and this is awareness of others. The productive way of using this skill is empathy or empathetic behavior, and unproductive way of these skills is to be insensitive. Awareness of others means perceiving, understanding, and acknowledging the way others feel. It helps us identify things that make people feel valued, cared for, and willing to listen and understand. It helps us show empathy, anticipate the reactions of others, and adapt our behavior. People who do not master these skills seem indifferent to how others feel. And at this point, I would like to underline the difference between empathy and compassion. Compassion shows that we care about someone else's position. For example, Sonia says, "Amanda, I'm really sorry about your husband's accident. In this case, Sonia expressed her feelings about the situation that Amanda found herself in because of her husband's accident. So, compassion is how I feel about you. Empathy, on the other hand, is something else. It expresses my understanding of how you feel in this moment. For example, Robert says, Mark, you are probably offended by what your boss told you at the meeting. An empathetic statement anticipates how the other person feels. Robert's statement is not about how he feels, but that he understands how Mark feels. Empathy can also be described as stepping into someone else's shoes. Empathy is no better than compassion. It is just different. We express compassion when we want to trust our feelings with someone else, such as when that person has just experienced a tragic situation. That's fine and right, but it is about how we feel, not the other person. Empathy not only expresses that we care about the other person's problem, but that we know what other person is experiencing. Because empathy shows that we are not focused on ourselves, but on the other person, it is often the beginning of the interaction. In the reality, people are today too busy to pay attention to others around them. So empathy is the opposite of indifference. By expressing empathy, we can gain the trust of other people. With empathy, we can, instead of being angry, also disarm another person. Of course, empathy is not simple, otherwise people would use it much more. And the first part of empathy is the skill of how to read someone else's emotions. At this point, I would like to underline that only 7% in our communication is the meaning of words. Another 38% of the information we get is the mode of speech, and 55% of the whole information we get from the other person is body language. So it is strongly recommended to get some knowledge about how to read the behavior of other people. So when we talk about empathy, we must step out of our own world, out of our own problems, our own worries, our joy and our responsibility, so that we can fully immerse ourselves in the world of another person. And one more important thing, expressing empathy is not offering advice, but showing that we really understand how the other person feels and thinks. Okay, so how do we act empathetically? We are actively listening to the other person in a concentrated way. We are careful about how we interpret what the person is saying, because often words are not what they really think. When we listen, we pay attention to the emotions in the tone of the voice, because the tone and words may be at odds. We carefully observe the facial mimicry of another person. We pay particularly attention to the position and movement of their eyes, eyebrows, forehead, and mouth. And we carefully observe the body language of the other person. Okay, let's go on the third part of the Janus model of emotional intelligence, and this is authenticity. The productive way how to express authenticity is to be genuine. An unproductive way of expression of this skill is to be untrustworthy. Authenticity means expressing yourself openly and effectively, respecting your obligations and promoting such behavior in others. It involves expressing feelings honestly and sharing emotions at the right time and with the right people. People with high level of authenticity are considered authentic, while people with low level of this skill are often described as unreliable or not trustworthy. People with high level of authenticity express their emotions appropriately, describe their feelings in a way that takes into account the feelings of others, effectively manage demanding communications like conversations, meetings, negotiations, are consistent in their operations, encourage others to express themselves appropriately, and respect commitments and agreements. The fourth part of this model of emotional intelligence is emotional reasoning. The productive way of expressing this skill is to be expansive in taking decisions, and on the other hand, the unproductive way of expressing this skill is to be limited in taking decisions. So emotional reasoning means taking into account your own feelings and feelings of others when making decisions. Feelings and emotions contain important information. When combined them with facts and technical information, we can make comprehensive, creative, and well thought out decisions. People who use only facts and technical informations are limited in their decision making. People who are good at emotional reasoning take into account the importance of emotions when making decisions. Ask others how they feel about potential solutions to problems. Evaluate matters from different perspectives. Involve others in deciding issues related to their work. Are aware of subjectivity in decision making. Communicate their decisions with consideration of the feelings of others, and consider the values of the organization when making important decisions. The fifth part of this model of emotional intelligence is self-management. The productive way of this skill is to be resilient, to be stable, and the unproductive way is to be temperamental or too much temperamental. Self-management is the management of one's own mood and emotions, time and behavior, and continually improving oneself. Our mood can be contagious and can have a profound impact in the workplace, productive or unproductive. People with this skill are psychologically stable, able to cope with high work demands and stress, are optimistic, and seek opportunities even in crisis situations. Self-management is obviously very important. The modern workplace is associated with high demands and pressures that can cause negative emotions. So our mood can be very contagious and therefore can have a profound impact in the workplace. People with well-developed self-management are psychologically stable and manage high work demands and stress, unlike those who are temperamental, are optimistic and seek opportunities in difficult situations, respond effectively in stressful situations, exhibit positive and energetic behavior, adapt effectively to different circumstances, respond appropriately to the criticisms of others, manage their time effectively, manage their negative emotions, and they are constantly striving to improve their skills. And at the end, the last part of this model of emotional intelligence is positive influence. So the productive way of these skills is to be empowering to other people, and unproductive way is to be indifferent. Positive influence takes into account the well-being of others in solving problems, providing feedback and supporting their work. It involves creating a positive work environment and help others find appropriate ways of responding and solving problems that affect their abilities. People who are able to positively influence the moods, feelings, and emotions of others easily motivate others to work with them. This skill is key to effectively encouraging coworkers. People with positive influence support others in their efforts, help others to resolve workplace conflicts, help others respond appropriately in stressful situations, respond effectively to the inappropriate behavior of others, help create a positive work environment, respond appropriately to the emotions of others, positively influence the mood, feelings, and emotions of others, act inclusively, and easily motivate others to work with them. People with well-developed emotional intelligence at work better manage their stress, have better relationships with colleagues, superiors, and subordinates, are better leaders, are better team players, are more productive, and in general, they are paid better. We can increase our emotional intelligence by managing our emotions better, improving our interpersonal capacity, and improve our motivation. The key element for better emotional intelligence is be more self-aware, to improve our self-awareness, because emotional intelligence can be only used when information enters in our conscious mind. High level of self-awareness is to listen and observe ourselves in action. I would like to bring this topic, this webinar, to the end with a statement of Maya Angelou from United States. He died in 2014, and she said that people will forget what you said, and people will also forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. Thank you very much for your attention. Now I am at your disposal for your questions.
Thank you very much for your exciting presentation. I think this was also a very interesting topic today. Now I'm still waiting for some questions from the participants. I also have one question. Does the emotional intelligence say something about the success of the company? So the amount of the social emotional intelligence of all employees?
Yes, we can say that the level of emotional intelligence in the organization is directly connected with their success. And in the Janus company, we have also model or a system how we can measure this investment when the organization invests in the education of the employees, that they improve their emotional intelligence. Then we can measure their success at the beginning, and then also after the whole project. So we can prove that it is worthy to invest in better emotional intelligence of employees in every organization. It is the same in the government organization, it is the same in the economy, in companies, it is the same in non-government organization, and especially it is important to have leaders at every level of the organization with as high level of the emotional intelligence as possible.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I have one more question. What techniques do you recommend for developing self-awareness and mindfulness?
For the mindfulness, there is a very simple technique. It is almost like a type of meditation. And I can share with you this technique, the instructions, via email. I think it would be better in this way because we don't have enough time to explain it at the moment. And I can also share with you some techniques how to improve self-awareness. As I said before, it is the crucial skill how to understand ourselves better. And if we only, if we are in a position that we do not react, but we respond, then we are at the moment much more emotional intelligent than people who are not.
Okay, thank you. It would be very great if you could share the documents you have with us, so I can send it afterwards to the participants, and I could also upload it on our platform.
Okay.
Thank you. I got one more question. So, is there a gender perspective to emotional intelligence? So, for example, are women do have women naturally more empathy? For example?
Yeah, in the society, we can often hear that women are better in the empathy and also at the emotional intelligence. But I have to say that it is not true. We are very similar, men and women, at this skill.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I thought also women would be more empathetic. So I can see any more questions. So I would like to thank you very much for your presentation today. And
it was my pleasure. So I hope it will be useful for your further work.
Sure, I think so.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, and thanks to all participants for listening. Have a great evening and stay healthy.
Yeah, you too. I wish you all the best and stay healthy. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.